So it's not only enough to address those 5 ECQs, there are 28 sub-competencies that go with those ECQs. But through research, OPM has determined that these 28 underlying factors are critical to good performance in the 5 core competencies, right? And so you have to be able to tell your story through the requisite underlying competencies. So leading change has 6 underlying competencies: creativity and innovation. What is innovative or groundbreaking about your change effort? What was new about it? You actually have to call that out. This was innovative because. External awareness. How did you take into account what was going on around you? Was there congressional pressure? Did you get a nasty GAO report? Were there media reports that were less than complimentary? What was going on externally to your universe that impacted this effort, either precipitated it or had to be taken into account in some way? How did you demonstrate flexibility in leading your initiative, right? When we have change, there's always cranks. That's not a technical term, but there's always people who push back. I'm not interested in the names of those people, but by function, who pushed back, who was opposed, how did you remain focused on the end goal, and how did you demonstrate flexibility to accommodate the folks in some way, shape, or form that were pushing back against you? What setbacks did you face, and how did you respond to those? What was strategic about your approach, and what was your vision for the end state? So your leading change has to be told through this lens. So generally, you might think about it as what was going on externally that precipitated the need for change. What wasn't working in the existing situation? What was your vision for the future? What was creative about it? What was your strategy for implementing it? Who pushed back? And how did you demonstrate your flexibility while keeping your eye on the prize, the end state? All right. So leading people has 4 underlying competencies. Conflict management. Please don't tell me that everybody on your staff gets along. Wrong answer, right? Think about, from your story, what conflict was there and how did you resolve it constructively? Leveraging diversity. Again, this is not about hiring different people. Leveraging diversity is about looking at the diversity that is on your staff. How do you manage through this? And when I'm talking about diversity, we need to get beyond the standard race diversity. It might be appropriate in your situation, but we can also focus on gender, we can focus on age, we can focus on people with disabilities, we can focus on sexual orientation, right? This is not about somebody claiming, I don't see color. Everybody sees color. Everybody sees gender. One of the things that I think we can really leverage here is unconscious bias, right? If you look at the broader world around us, there are lots of conversations going on in many, many workplaces about unconscious bias, which exists in all of us. So how are you starting to have the conversations as leaders that we should be having with our staff to create a truly inclusive workplace? And people are nervous, frankly, about talking about this stuff. And that's part of the issue, I think. How are you forging these conversations that we need to be having? All right, 2 more for leading people. Developing others. How are you providing feedback? What training are you doing? How are you mentoring them? Promoting IDPs and all of that kind of stuff. And team building. How are you creating a sense of team? Do you have friendly competitions? Do you do t-shirts with your team motto? How are you building a sense of team? So the conflict might be the same piece of the story as leveraging diversity, depending how you tell the story. So this is conflict management, leveraging diversity, developing others, and team building. Results driven has 6 competencies. Accountability. What control are you putting into place to hold people accountable? Customer service. How does the story we're talking about, the problem, how are we improving customer service? Decisiveness. What decisions did you make as part of this effort, right? Entrepreneurship. Most of us, when we think about entrepreneurship, think about small businesses, right? In the context of the ECQs, this is not about creating a small business. Of course, that would be an ethics problem. What this is about is seizing an opportunity to improve things, taking risks that are calculated to help further the organizational objectives. So that's what it means in terms of entrepreneurship. And then the 2 others, problem solving. What's the problem and what decisions did you make to solve it? And how did you use your technical skill or your knowledge base in solving that problem, in improving accountability? So here is a 1/6 of a piece that you can geek out for a sentence or 2. So, this is stuff I think you do all day long. So, business acumen, financial management, human capital, and IT. So, this is about really putting together a business case for your budget and understanding its impact on how many people you have and what kinds of people you have, how you recruit them, that sort of thing, right? And what systems you use to get it done. Or resources were cut. How are you going to get your job done? Those kinds of things. I think for many of you, especially those of you who deploy, these are things you're thinking about and doing all of the time. Right? So, what's your PPBE process? How did you justify your request for more resources, both dollars and people? Your request or your business case was so compelling that it was approved, what have you. How did you use technology in your process? Maybe you created some kind of fancy little model to do your math for you. And then let's talk about building coalitions, which also has 3 concepts. So partnerships across organizational lines, political savvy. Let's talk about this for a second. This is not what I call big P, where we're talking, Democrat, Republican. This is what I refer to as little p. What are the organizational politics that you have to address? Both your internal organizational politics and the organizational politics of those that you're interacting with. I mean, when you're responding to an event, you're not responding in a vacuum. And what you do has to meet goals, as well as the goals of who you are working with at the local, state, tribal, territorial, etc. levels. So what are their issues, concerns? Who are their stakeholders? What are the pressures on them? What are your pressures internally? And how do you negotiate through those differences? This is not about getting your people to like you and getting your people to do their jobs. This is really about working with folks external to the organization. This is about way more than having a meeting. Don't tell me you set up a meeting, right? A GS5 can set up a meeting. What about that meeting and how you conducted it, or the groundwork you did before you got there, elevates that meeting beyond the GS5 admin level to being truly executive. Likewise, don't tell me about training, right? Again, that training is not in and of itself executive. How did you get to a place where those external organizations agreed to your approach? How did you integrate their needs with accomplishing your mission? So this is not just about being nice and doing outreach. You've got to work through those issues that occur when you have to work with people. I mean, everybody's coming at this from their own perspectives. How do you work through those issues?